Good evening, all of you. I hope you all are doing well. And today in this session, we are going to study the World History Part 2. Yesterday, we have completed the World History Part 1. In the previous chapter, we have studied the Renaissance and the Industrial Revolution of London. Okay, so today we are going to study the Global War, then the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Okay, so these three topics we are going to study in detail in this particular session. So let's start the session. The first we're going to study is the 7-year global war. So here three things you need to understand: why the 7-year global war happened, between which parties it happened, and what is the main reason behind it and how it ended. Okay, so these are the 3-4 factors you need to study in the 7-year global war. Okay, so first, the 7-year global war happened between 1754 to 1763. So this is the time period of 7-year global war. So in fact, if you count the years number, it would be 9 years. Okay, so it is usually called as the 7 years. So that's why the name is 7-year global war. From 1754 to 1763, it would be like 9 years. Okay, so actually the period is 9 years, and it was fought between the France and the Britain. Okay, so remember, these two main forces were there. One side France, imperialistic country, and the other side Britain. Okay, so apart from the France and Britain, other European countries were also involved in the 7-year global war. So like Spain, Prussia, Austria, and in fact even India and many Asian countries also fought in the 7-year global war. So that's why the name is global war. Okay, because it did not fought only between the France and Britain. So many of the global countries and many different battlegrounds were included in the 7-year global war. So that's why it is called as the global war. So a lot of the countries involved in the global war. So if you come to the Indian point of view, 1757 Plassey War, that is a war of Plassey, it was fought because of the 7-year global war only. Okay, so a lot of countries involved in the 7-year global war. So now we understood the time period of the 7-year global war and between which countries mainly the war happened. And now we're going to study the reason behind the war, why the 7-year global war was fought. The main reason behind the war was the quest for hegemony over the colonies between the Britain and the France. See, yesterday we have studied, right, what happened after the Industrial Revolution in the Europe. Okay, how the society was there in the Europe before the Industrial Revolution and before the Renaissance. See, after the Renaissance and Industrial Revolution, European countries have become more powerful. They started making colonies all across the world. Okay, they started making colonies in the America, Africa, Asia. Okay, so a lot of the European countries like France, Britain, Spain, okay, all these countries started making colonies all over the world. So because of that, there was a quest for hegemony over the colonies, mainly between the Britain and France. Okay, so because of that, the 7-year global war was fought mainly between the France and Britain. See, France and Britain, they were the two powerful European countries at that moment of time. Okay, so France and Britain, they were the most powerful European countries, most powerful imperialistic countries. Because of their colonies, they fought the war, that is 7-year global war, which reflected into the many different battlegrounds all across the world. So that is the reason behind the 7-year global war. Okay, so then how the war ended? So this war ended with the Treaty of Paris that happened in 1763. So that is the result of 7-year global war. Okay, so this Treaty of Paris, it happened in 1763. It had a lot of the clauses. So three main clauses are there. So first clause is Britain got Canada from France and Florida from the Spain. Okay, so remember here, the Canada was the colony of the Britain, but France were occupied that. So after the Treaty of Paris in 1763, what happened? So Britain got the Canada from the France and later Florida from the Spain. Okay, so that was one clause. Second clause is France was allowed to retain its Caribbean sugar islands. Okay, because these Caribbean sugar island was attacked by the British people. So after the Treaty of Paris, France was allowed to retain its Caribbean sugar island back. So third clause is Spain's control over Cuba and Philippines was recognized. The Spain is also one of the imperialistic country. Cuba and Philippines were the colonies of the Spain. Before the Treaty of Paris of 1763, it was not recognized by the different European countries. But after the Treaty of Paris of 1763, the Spain's control over the Cuba and Philippines was recognized by the different European countries. Okay, so these three main clauses were included in the Treaty of Paris, and the global war, which was fought in the between the 1754 to 1763, it got ended with the Treaty of Paris. So these are the three different clauses of the Treaty of Paris. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Okay. So next we're going to study the American Revolution. So what till now what we have studied? We have studied the 7-year global war and how it got ended. So here another point you need to remember is in the American continent, Britain got a lot of power. Okay, Britain had a lot of colonies, and the French influence in the American continent, it was very much negligible because of the 7-year global war. So that point also you need to keep in mind. Okay, so next topic we're going to study is American Revolution. Okay, American Revolution, the time period is from 1765 to 1783. So it is a time period you need to remember. American Revolution, it happened between 1765 to 1783. So in Northern America, the British had established the 13 colonies on the west coast of Atlantic Ocean after the 7-year war. Because I told you what happened just now. After the 7-year war, the British influence in the American continent, it was increased. And the French influence in the Northern America, it was, ended, almost ended after the 7-year global war. Okay, so that's the point I'm explaining once again. Here, British had established the 13 colonies on the west coast of Atlantic Ocean in the Northern America, and French influence was very much negligible. So I'm telling you how the condition was there before the American Revolution. So this was the condition. America was the colony of the Britain. Okay, so that you need to remember. And how many colonies were there? 13 colonies were there. British had established the 13 colonies in the America. Okay, so that point you need to keep in mind. So then we're going to study what was the reason for the American resentment against the British. So why they revolted against the Britishers. So before that, you need to understand one point clearly. So these American peoples are nothing but the British origin people only. Okay, so America was just a land there before the Britain origin people go and settle there. There were some red Indians were there. Okay, so red Indians were there. So after that, Britain origin people only they migrated there and they become the colonies of the Britain once again. Okay, so that is that was the history. Okay, so now we're going to study the reasons for American resentments against the British. So one thing is, the first reason is mercantile capitalism. So this is the British mercantile capitalism. This is one of the system. It created an environment of resentment among the white Americans. Okay, and the 7-year war created the conditions which became the immediate trigger for the American Revolution. So before going into that, we need to understand what is this mercantile capitalism is all about. Mercantile capitalism is nothing but one imperialistic country will be there, say for example British, that is the imperialistic country, and the colonial country will be there, that is America. Okay, consider country A, that is British, another country America, that is the colony of the British. So now these British people are going to rule the America in the interest of the parent country, that is in the interest of the British. So same thing they have done on the India also, not only on India, in any other colonies, same thing they have done, that is mercantile capitalism in favor of the British, in favor of the London or in favor of the Britain. They had come up with lot of rules and regulations over the other different colonies. Okay, so that is called as mercantile capitalism. So under the mercantile capitalism, the Britain people wanted to sell their goods, manufacture goods into the different colonies. Okay, so they did not allow the American people to grow their own goods, grow their own industries, or develop their own economy. So they did not allow that, because they were working on behalf of the Britain. They were working on the interest of the Britain. Okay, so their interest is completely on the Britain and development of the Britain, not on the interest of developing the America. Okay, so that is called as the mercantile capitalism. Obviously American people will get jealous about it. Not only jealous, it is wrong thing to do. Okay, so the British people did the same on other colonies also. Okay, I hope this is clear to you what is mercantile capitalism system is all about. Okay, I hope this is clear. So keep in mind that is one basic and economic reason why the American Revolution happened. One is mercantile capitalism. Okay, so next thing is modern thinkers and philosophers. They played very important role in the American Revolution. See, modern philosopher thinkers like Thomas Paine, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson is very important. In fact, the person who declared the America as independence, this person only. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson. So remember his name. So Thomas Paine, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, all these modern thinkers and philosophers, they played the very important role in the American Revolution because they came up with the new thoughts. They came up with the new ideas like freedom, liberty, okay, and democracy, okay, democratic form of government. So these are the new ideas. So now we guys are familiar with the freedom, liberty, democracy, and all, but we are talking about the 1750s. So in the 1750s, what was the condition of India? You can imagine the condition of India was like under the Britishers' hand. We did not know what is the nationalism. We did not know what is the freedom, what is liberty, or what is democracy. So where we borrowed these things, we borrowed these things from this only. Such kind of revolution like French Revolution, American Revolution, and mainly from these modern thinkers and philosophers. Okay, so we borrowed from that. So now we are familiar with those terms, but we are talking about 1750. Those were the very new and modern ideas at that time. Okay, so whenever you study any history like world history, ancient or modern history, you need to go to that period. Okay, so you need to think like the person who are living in that period, so then only we'll get the clear picture of what was happening. Okay, so I hope you are getting my point. So this freedom and liberty for the people and democratic form of governance, these were the new ideas they came up with the modern thinkers and philosophers like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and all. And these new ideas attracted the people because they were under the colonization rule of the Britishers. There was no freedom, there was no liberty, there was no democracy. The monarchical government was existed. There was no republican country also. Okay, so there were the so these because of that evils, this freedom, liberty, and democratic form of governance, these new ideas attracted the people and they influenced the people. Okay, so they were the good thoughts. So because of that, modern thinkers and philosophers, so this is also one reason for the American Revolution. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So next is the recovery of the war expenditure. So which war? Recently we studied, that is 7-year global war. Okay, so recovery of the 7-year global wars expenditure. So here the after the 7-year global war, which was fought between the Britain and France, so Britain claimed that lot of money we have spended for the 7-year global war, especially on the Northern America. Okay, so they have claimed like that. So this is your duty to fulfill all that wealth we have lost. So this is what Britain people told to the American people. So I'm telling you once again. So what they said is, so British people, that is colonialistic people, they said that the cost of the 7-year global war was very much high. Okay, it was paid by the Britain. So in fact, we fought this war to save the Northern America. So this is your duty to fulfill that wealth return back to the Britain. So because of that, keeping that in mind, they started increasing more amount of taxes for the American people. Okay, so to fulfill the war expenditure of the 7-year global war. Okay, so Britain was started doing such thing. So this because of that, the Northern American leaders and the people, so in fact the people and leaders, they opposed it. They started opposing it. Okay, so that is also one of the reasons. So the recovery of war expenditure of the 7-year global war, which was claimed by the Britain, and they increased the taxation of the American people. So it was opposed by the American people. Okay, so this is also one of the economic reason for the American Revolution. Okay, so this is the third reason. I hope this is clear to you. So next is the no representation in the British Parliament. So this is one of the very important reason. So since the British Parliament had the no American representation, the American leaders opposed the right of Britain to levy any taxes on them. See, it's true, right? Because American people, they were, independent people, they were living in a country. But the British people, they came and they took over the America. They made the colony of that, but there was no representation of the American people in the British Parliament. but Britishers are levying the taxes on American people, which they have no any representation in the parliament. So that's why the American people started opposing the right of Britain to levy any taxes on them. They started the slogan that is no taxation without representation. They clearly told that our representation in parliament is not there, so we're not going to pay any taxes for you guys. Who the hell are you to ask us to give the taxes or pay the taxes for the government? Okay, that is the slogan, no taxation without the representation. And the leaders of all 13 colonies, they gathered in the America. Then they adopted the slogan that is no taxation without representation. It's a very famous slogan of the American Revolution. Okay, so remember, no taxation without representation. So this is also one of the political reason behind the American Revolution. Okay. Next, the American opposed the tax on consumer goods imported by the colonies by cutting the British imports by half. Okay, so what happened is the no taxation without representation, this slogan got popularization. A lot of people started following it, and they boycotted a lot of the consumer goods. In fact, they cutted the British imports by half. Okay, so if 100% import was there, then now they cutted it to the 50%. They opposed the tax on any consumer goods which was imported by the different colonies by the Britain. Then which coerced the British into the withdrawing all taxes except on the tea. So because of this large amount of opposition by the American people, they removed all the taxes. Okay, so they withdraw all the consumer goods taxes, but they kept one tax, that is the tea tax. Okay, so why they have kept a tea tax? In fact, it was very much low compared to the other goods tax. Okay, why they have kept this? Because their ego. Okay, so if they withdraw all the taxes, okay, completely, then it is like surrendering to the American people. So it is like the threat for their ego. Okay, it's for their self-respect. They kept that tea tax. Okay, so because of that tea tax, again, you will see the Boston Tea Party. So before that, going to the Boston Tea Party, it happened in 1773. We're going to study the Stamps Act of 1765. Okay, so this is one of the act bought by the Britain government in the America. Okay, so Stamp Act. So because of this Stamp Act, any legal documents of the Americans and wills of the Americans and licenses of the Americans, it has to get the stamps of the UK. Okay, so that is all about the Stamps Act. Here they need to pay a little bit tax on that. So to earn some revenue from the Americans, they bought the Stamps Act of 1765. Okay, so this is also opposed by the American. Okay, they already told that no taxation without the representation. So that's why it was opposed by the Americans, and later it got repaired by the UK. Okay, so it got repaired by the UK. Okay, so next is we're going to study the Boston Tea Party. It happened in 1773. So it was a protest against this tea tea tax. I told you, right? All the tax were withdrawn by the Britain government except the tea tax. I told you why they have kept the tea tax. Okay, in fact, it was very low, okay, low price. But too, they have kept the tea tax because of their ego. Okay, so they kept that. So Boston Tea Party, it happened in 1773. It was the protest against the tea tax, which was levied by the British people. So a one ship carrying the tea was anchored in the Boston port. So Boston is a port. So that you need to remember. Okay, it is not, see, if you read the Boston Tea Party, then you might think like it's some party was happening there. No, no, no. So it is just like protest. Okay, it's a war, not that war. You can say the small revolt. So what is Boston here? Boston is a port. It was the very important port. All the imports and exports of the goods were done by the Boston port only at that moment of time. Okay, so in the Boston, one ship which was carrying the tea, it was anchored in the Boston port. Initially, the Americans did not allow the ship to unload, and this resulted in a standoff for many days. Okay, so that the ship carrying the tea, it came to the Boston port. Americans did not, allow it to the unload because the tea tax was there now. Okay, so that's why they did not allow. So in fact, which ship bought the tea? So that is also question here. It is nothing but our East Indian Company ship. Okay, because East India Company, it was getting a lot of tea from the Asian countries like India and other Asian countries. They did not had any market to sell it. Okay, so that's why they diverted their ship to the Northern America to sell the tea over there. But the tea has the tea tax in the America, so that's why American people oppose that, and they did not allow to unload that ship. Okay, so later what happened again? The rivalry happened between the Britishers and the Americans, and later the Americans, they get over the sea, and they started throwing the tea into the sea. Okay, so tea pockets into the sea. So then they thrown all the tea which was there in the ship into the sea. So that is all about the Boston Tea Party that happened in 1773. So it is one of the rivalry between the American people and the British. Okay, so British East India Company ship. So that is all about the Boston Tea Party. It happened in the 1773. Okay, so next we study the first Continental Congress in the Philadelphia. So you need to remember the first Continental Congress in Philadelphia. It happened on 1774. It is also called as the Philadelphia Congress. Okay. So here what happened was the American people, okay, they were very much fed up of the British people, because they were increasing a lot of taxes. They were, indirectly or directly interfering in the social life of the Americans. So because of that, Americans appealed to the King George III. Okay, so they put up the pile, or they put the petition for the King George III. They said that remove the restrictions on indigenous industries. So what are indigenous industries? Indigenous industries are governed and run by the American people. Okay, which industries are there in the America. So those are called as indigenous industries. So they appealed to the King George III. So what they told, say, remove the restrictions on the indigenous industry. Then they allow Americans to trade with all the countries, okay, at reduced tariffs, and not to tax on the American colonies without their consent. So this was their petition to the George III. Okay, so what they told, okay, remove the restrictions on the indigenous industry so that we can manufacture our own goods. Not only we can be self-sufficient, we can even sell it to the other countries also. So that you need to reduce the tariffs, and then they also appealed not to tax on the American colonies without their consent. Okay, so this was the appeal put by the Americans in front of the King George III. So then Britain, what it did is, the Britain interpreted these demands as a mutiny. Okay, so they interpreted this as a mutiny, and they attacked the colonies in the 1775. Okay, so Britain thought that, okay, these people are doing something else wrongly. So they interpreted these demands as a mutiny against the British people, and they attacked the colonies in the 1775. So after the next year, Second Continental Congress happened. So that is in the 1776. It is very important one. So here the Declaration of Independence happened. Okay, so that is Declaration of Independence of America. So here you need to remember one date, that is July 4. Okay, July 4, 1776. So this date is called as the American Independence Day. Okay, so not India. I always used to say India. No, it is American Independence Day. Okay, July 4th, 1776. Okay, when the British people, attacked the colonies in the very next year, they declared the independence of the America by the American people. So it was drafted by the Thomas Jefferson. I told you, right? Thomas Jefferson, he was a thinker and philosopher, very important one. He declared the independence of the America on July 4th, 1776. So in that declaration, he had made a lot of the norms. Okay, a lot of the things were there. So one is that all men are created equal. Okay, so why they have came up with such an new ideas? Because they were fed up with the old society. So now they came up with the new ideas, that is, all men are created equal. There is no above here, no one is below here. All are created equal. So you Britishers are not above us. Okay, we Americans are not below you. So we all are equal. Okay, so that all men are created equal. Then that they are endowed by their creation certain inalienable rights, like right of right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, so these are very important terms. These are new terms. That is right to life, right to liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, next, republicanism. So what is republican means? Anybody let me know in the comment section. What is republic? India is a republic country, right? So what is republic means, or means? Anybody? We are studying that India is republic country. from class 1, right? What is republic? Anybody? Ruled by its people. I want literal meaning of republic. That is general meaning. What is republic? We are studying, right, republic from class 1. So what is republic? Okay. So republic is nothing but the head of the state or head of the country will be elected by the people. Okay. So that should not be in the hereditary hand. Okay. So that is called as republic. If the head of the country's position is hereditary, it is called as monarch. Okay. So like how it is there still in the London. Okay. Because the head will be the king's family only. Okay. So that is called as monarch. So compare, you come to the India. You can hear head of the country, that is our president. From the people, by the people, and for the people. It's called republic. Who is this? Edu. So this is not. I'm asking the literal meaning. So whatever, this is the literal meaning of the republic. Okay, the head of the state, head of the country will be elected by the people. It should not be done through hereditary means. Okay, so that is called as republic. You can compare the UK and India. So in India, head of the state is our president. Okay, our president Ramnath Kovind is there. Next time it might change to some other people. Okay, it's not necessarily by his family only. Okay, so that is called as republic country. Okay, that is the principle that people are the source of authority, and it is people's right to set up their own government. It is a broad idea of the republic country, but in literal sense what I have told you, that is republic. Okay, so next is the independence. So they have put up in the declaration, that is independence from the any other colonial any other imperialistic countries like the British. Okay, so they have declared the independence. Okay, so not only these 4 points, many points are involved in the Second Continental Congress of 1776, which was drafted by the Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Okay, so next, in 1783, the British commander Cornwallis surrendered before the army led by the George Washington. Okay, so Cornwallis belongs to the Britishers. He surrendered before the army, which was led by the George Washington. So after that, Second Treaty of Paris happened. That is in the 1783. See, even though the American people declared their independence on 1776 itself, but it took some 3-4 years to give the complete independence from the Britishers, or to get the complete independence from the Britishers. So with this Second Treaty of Paris, they got the complete independence, and it ended the Americans' war of independence. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. So Second Treaty of Paris, 1783. So we have studied First Treaty of Paris in 1763, right? That is after the 7-year global war. So now it is Second Treaty of Paris. It happened in 1783, exactly 20 years after the First Treaty of Paris. Okay, then now we're going to study the important clauses of the Treaty of Paris. So one is perpetual peace between the USA and Britain. So it's obviously the norm of the Treaty of Paris. Second is all US colonies were recognized as free, sovereign and independent states. Okay, so free, sovereign and independent states, with Britain giving up all claims on government, property and territory. So this point shows the complete independence of the American people. Okay, what they are telling, all US colonies were recognized as the free and sovereign and independent states. Okay, so with the Britain is giving up all the claims on government, property and territory. So next, US would give back confiscated lands of loyalties. Okay, loyalists. Okay, so these are the three different norms involved in the Second Treaty of Paris. It happened on 1783. Okay, so with this, American War of Independence completed. They got independence. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. So next is the French Revolution that we're going to study. Okay, So till now we have studied the American Revolution. Now we are going to study the French Revolution. So here the French Revolution was a product of dysfunctional society characterized by the feudalism. Okay, so before going into that, we need to study what is the main idea behind the French Revolution. Like how we have studied for the American Revolution, we have to study what is the main idea for the French behind the French Revolution. Okay, so main idea is social and the political inequalities. It was there in the France at that time. To abolish that, the French Revolution came. Okay, so social and political inequality was there in the France. Okay, so because this things, that is dysfunctional society, it was characterized by feudalism. This was the social evil. So because of that, social and political inequality were there. So that's the main idea behind the French Revolution. And why it matters now? That is also the question that we need to ask ourselves. Why we need to study that now? Why it matters now? Because throughout the history, when we see the history, in the throughout history, economy and social inequalities have at times led peoples to the revolt against their government. Okay. So to now that concept, that's very important concept. So it is very important to study the revolutions like that. Okay, so throughout the history, economic and social inequalities have at times led the people to revolt against their government. So this is the warning bell for each and every government that you should not create any social and political inequalities among the people. Otherwise, what will happen? Revolution will happen. Okay, so that is like history is all about that only. What we have to do in future, what we haven't do in the future. Okay, so what we need to do in the future. Okay, so that is all about history. So this is the main thing why it matters now, French Revolution. Okay, so now we're going to study the reason behind the French Revolution. So there are many reasons are there, like many different social reasons are there, political reasons are there, economic reasons are there. So now we're going to study one by one. So first thing is social reasons. Okay, so social reason, the society of the 18th century France was divided into the three classes or estates. Here don't confuse with the class and estate, these two are same term. Okay, classes or estates. So this society was divided into the three main estates. So first estate or first class is the clergy class. Okay, so the clergy, it was the first state or first estate or first class. The clergy means the churchman, the head of the church. Okay, so those people involved in the first class. So second is the nobility class. Okay, so nobility class, it was hereditary. Okay, so officials, these noble people were the officials in the government, and their rules and everything was a hereditary manner. So these people belongs to the second state. And the third state was formed by the majority of population. In fact, it is formed by the 80% of the population of the France. It includes the middle class people, the artisans, city workers, and the peasants. See, okay. So these kind of three different class system was there in the France in the 18th century. Okay, so what are these three classes? The clergy class. Clergy means the churchmen. Okay, so that class was there. Next, nobles class was there, and the third class, which includes the lot of the middle class people, artisans, city workers, and peasants. So middle and the third estate or third class is the one which had the majority of population. Okay, so these three types of classes were there. And the problem here is these classes were very much rigid, just like our Varna system. Okay, so the reason behind Varna system and reason behind these three classes was these are different, but as compared to the rigidity, in the compare of the matter of rigidity, these two are same. Okay, social mobility was not there among each and every class. Such kind of system was there. And another important thing is, see, this first estate and second estate, that is clergy people and noble people, even though they had very less number of population, they were controlling all the power. Okay, so what all political power was existed, that was in the hand of the first and the second estate people. Okay, and these people were not paying any taxes to the government. Okay, so clearly listen this. See, these three class was not at all the problem, but the problem is the first and the second class people, they had lot of political power and they had lot of political influence, and they were not paying any taxes to the government. Okay, so what kind of logic it is? See, they had all the political powers in their hand, but they were not paying any taxes to the government. Okay, but when it comes to the third estate or third class status, and they did not had any political power, but they were the one who were paying all the taxes to the government. This is the irony here. Okay, so what kind of logic it is, I don't know, but such kind of system was there. Because of that system, the French Revolution started. Okay, so because of these first, second, and third estates, so mainly because of the third estate people, they fought against the second and first class people, because they were the people who were paying a lot of the taxes to the government, but they did not had any voting power, or they did not had any political power in their hand. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So this is the social cause behind, or social reason behind the French Revolution. So next is the political causes. Okay, so we have studied the social causes. Now we are going to study the political causes. So there are different kings are there. So Louis XIV. Okay, he was the king Louis XIV. So he greatly increased the France national debt. See, he was the very luxurious person, and many wars he fought. Because of that, he greatly increased the France national debt. Okay, so if the country fall under the national debt, and the burden is obviously on the people only, because the people have to pay the taxes. But when it comes to the case of the France, then which people are paying the taxes? Third estate people. Okay, first and second estate people, they were not paying any taxes, they were very much free, but all the political power they were enjoying. Okay, the burden is on the third estate people. So such kind of system was there. So next comes the weak Louis 15. Okay, after Louis 14, next comes the king Louis 15. He is considered as a weak because he was very inefficient fellow, and he neglected completely the state affairs. He neglected the state, and he appointed the many officials which are of his favor. Okay, so such kind of thing was happening. And he curved the press and speech. Okay, he curved the rights of press and speech. Okay, such kind of evils was there in the society. So next comes the Louis 16. Okay, so Louis 16, he did not hold any reforms in the society, or in the polity or economy of the country. So next, he is ill advising Queen Marie Antoinette. So remember her name, Mary Antoinette. Okay, she was the queen of Louis 16. She always giving the ill advice for the Louis 16, and he was listening to her words. Okay, then the king also showed the favoritism in appointing the officials, that is also well known as nepotism. So such kind of system was there. So these are the political, some of the political causes why the French Revolution happened. Okay, so now we study the social causes. What was the social cause behind the French Revolution, and what is the political causes behind the French Revolution. Okay, so many economic causes were also there. Okay, so now we're going to study the events in the French Revolution of 1789. What all are the events are there in the French Revolution of 1789. So before going into the events, I'm gonna tell you some important economic causes, because we have studied social causes, political causes, we missed the economic causes. The economic causes is nothing but France and Britain for the 7-year global war. So because of that, France was in the national debt. Finally, the tax burden was on the third estate people. That is the main financial cause, or you can say economic cause behind the French Revolution. Okay, so now we're going to study the events in the French Revolution of 1789. So in 1789, King Louis XVI called a meeting of Estate General, which was the old feudal assembly of the three estates, to get consent for additional fund. Okay, so this event is very important. So King Louis XVI, after the end of the 7-year global war, the France not only fought that, again many war they fought. So because of that, national debt was very much increasing. So to create the additional fund, so King Louis XVI, he called one meeting for the Estates General. Okay, so this Estate General, it was one of the assembly, or you can say it is one of the committee. It was a old feudal assembly which included the three estate people. Okay, so why he called that assembly? To get the consent for additional funds. So here additional funds is there. Okay, then finally who are giving the funds here? See, first state people, second state people, they were not paying any taxes for the government. These additional funds are taking from the which people, third estate people only, like peasants and middle class people and all. Okay, so such kind of thing was there. So now they started rebelling against the king because they asked for voting rights. Okay, so they started questioning, okay, we are ready to pay the taxes for you guys, even though you don't pay any taxes, but where are our rights? We need voting rights, we also need political power, so then only we're ready to give the taxes. But they this this appeal is not acceptable for the first and second state people. Okay, nobles and clergies, they did not agree for that. So because of that, third estate people, the third estate representatives, they declared themselves as the National Assembly. I hope you getting the picture. Okay, so they did not agree for their claims. That's why their third estate representatives declared themselves as the National Assembly. So this is one of the assembly of people rather than an assembly of the estates. Okay, so this is the assembly of people. Which people? Large amount of the third estate people. Soon they moved their meeting to the nearby Royal Tennis Court. It's a very important one. Okay, so in the Royal Tennis Court, they take the oath. It is a very well known as Royal Tennis Court oath. Okay, so Royal Tennis Court oath. So their goal was to draw up a constitution for France in which the third estate could also have the voting rights. Okay, so they did not had voting rights before. So through this Royal Tennis Court oath, they started to make their own constitution for the France. So in which the third estate could also have the voting rights. Okay, when they did not get whatever they want from the class 1 and class 2 people, then obviously they move from it. Okay, they get separated from it, and they started making National Assembly. Okay, in the favor of the all people. Here they are claiming their voting rights. Okay, so this is called as Royal Tennis Court oath. Okay, when the king sent the troops to dispel the leaders of the third estate to the Royal Tennis Court, the people got enraged and they went on to break upon the open the Bastille prison. Okay, such event also happened. See, Bastille is one of the area in the prison name in the France. Okay, so this movement is known as Bastille prison movement. Okay, so here what people done is, when they started making Royal Tennis Court oath, the King Louis XVI, he sent the troops to dispel the leaders of the third estate people. Okay, because they were not happy with the third estate people's rights. Okay, so that's why they sent the troop. So when they send the troop, these people go to the Bastille prison and they open the Bastille prison and they independent they leave a lot of the people over there. Okay, so Bastille prison movement was happening. Okay, in till now in France they will celebrate the Bastille Day. Okay, so that also you need to remember, Bastille Day. It's a very important moment that happened. So these are some events happened. Next comes the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Okay, so they fought a lot of the rebellion. They fought a lot of the rivalry among the French people, that is third estate people, and then first estate and the second estate people, and also with the king. So after all the rivalry and after all the fighting, finally they came up with the rights of man and citizen. So it included all of these clauses. One is all men are born free and equal. Okay, so such kind of clause was there. Then equality before law. So still in our constitution we can see this equality before law and equal protection of law. Okay, so that is the Article 14 of our constitution. Okay, so this all we borrowed from these revolutions only. Next, principle of innocent until proven otherwise. Next, all people were eligible to the public offices irrespective of their classes. Okay, so such kind of clause was there. Next, freedom of speech and press, very important one. The freedom of speech and press, freedom of expression, freedom of life, liberty. Okay, so all those things they have included in the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. Okay, through this the French Revolution came to an end. And before that we need to know about some important thinkers in the French. Okay, like John, their name in the slides. If you want, you can write it down. John Locke is one of the famous philosopher. He given the philosophy of life, liberty, and property, that is private property. So next comes the J.J. Rousseau. He was also one of the famous thinker, and he given the concept of the social contract and people sovereign and they are all powerful. Okay, such kind of concept he was given. Next comes the very important one, Voltaire. Okay, Voltaire thinker. He told that freedom of religion is important, then freedom of expression for the people is important. Next, separation of church from the state, separation of church and state, that is separation of religion and state. So this is the concept of secularism. Okay, so this is given by the Voltaire. He claimed that. Okay, so a lot of the people comes. At least you need to remember about the Voltaire, famous thinker for the in the French Revolution. Next, J.J. Rousseau. Then the Locke, that is John Locke. So these three people also contributed a lot for the French Revolution. Okay, and also they got influenced by the American Revolution that also ignited the French Revolution further. Okay, so with all this, it came to an end. Okay, so in this topic, you learned the world history part 2. If you have any doubts regarding these topics, let me know in the comment section. And here in the French Revolution, we need to study about the Jacobean and the Napoleon. So that we're going to cover in the next class. If you have any doubts in this concept, what we have covered today, let me know in the comment section.